So it'll be interesting to see how he gets the Spurs players to buy into his philosophy. He comes in, he changes it to 3 at the back, which is something that I'm surprised that Nuno didn't do a little bit more, because that's what he implemented at Wolves. But what Conte does bring is a level of clout that Nuno didn't have. He's won leagues in England, he's won it in Italy as well. He's managed on the international stage.
Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. Here again with my guys, Del Chapo and Kwaku Afari. How you doing, boys?
All good, man. All good. Week's kind of quieted down a little bit. Last week was fucking hectic. So, yeah, good to be back in the studio recording this podcast with you boys.
Yeah, better late than never. But what did you boys do over the weekend anyway? Anything good?
I've been ill, man. I've literally just recovered. I had some sort of sickness, but it was horrible, mate. But went for Nando's today to kind of get some greens and some protein in the
What
system.
did you order?
Okay, yeah, do you know what? That's the question.
Here we go.
What's your Nando's order?
You boys know I've been on a bit of a diet, so I don't want any judgment after this. So chicken thighs, always the chicken thighs at Nando's, man. If anyone wants to talk bad about chicken thighs from Nando's, I'll meet them outside.
Okay.
I'll fight the corner of the chicken thighs. Tender stem broccoli, because who don't love a bit of tender stem? And then the macho peas. I know it's a.
No,
it was. I know it was split the listeners, but
There's a lot of green in that meal, you know.
Yeah. As a nutritionist here, you should be happy with that, bro.
Oh, I mean, I'm happy, but like for
Not
me,
impressed.
that's my everyday kind of thing. You know, I'm eating green stuff every day, so like I don't want to be eating that when I'm going out for dinner. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Well, one question, the most important question: what was your level of spice on the thighs?
I go hot, man.
Hot. I'll give you a seal of approval on that.
Well,
you know,
well,
spud on camera. I don't know if you guys can see that.
If it's anything below medium,
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah.
No, not about that.
Not about
If
the
you
lemon
want to come
herb
to
life.
Nando's with me, you want to be ordering lemon and herb, I'll go sit you on another table, man.
To be fair, so it's got. I used to order extra hot, but now I'm just a hot kind of guy. I do like.
The extra hot's just a bit too like.
I
Are
enjoy
you guys
it.
mad? Extra hot. I'm like, that's me. That's me. If I could get hotter than extra hot, that's my bag, man.
Do you know that funny story?
I get a Vusa.
I know we're obviously on a football podcast, but a funny story. One of the guys that I went to university with, I'm not going to expose him, but when he used to go to Nando's, he used to get them to put an extra hot sticker, even though he would get a medium, just because he felt
One of them,
like
yeah.
if he was going on dates and stuff with
On the
girls,
sly.
that he wouldn't look macho if he come with the medium.
Do you know what? He's in trouble now because you order at the table. You order via the QR code, so that like all those guys trying to finesse the stick, like the little flags.
Yeah.
Bang in trouble.
That's fraudulence right there.
That is chicken fraudulence, mate. Chicken fraudulence. I'm not on board with that.
We don't stand for that. The We Talk Football podcast.
No, exactly. He's a lemon and herb don.
Say
But
that.
anyway, onto the football. We should really talk football because this is the We Talk Football podcast. I mean, the biggest breaking story really is Nuno. It's a no-no for Nuno. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the journalists were bigging up when El Sacco when United faced Spurs on the weekend, and it proved to be true because Nuno's lost his job. Spurs looking for another manager. He's been there for 4 months, 17 games. Then, if you look at, they've won 5 games and lost 5 games. There's been Spurs managers who started off worse, but I think it's the style of football that he's implemented at Spurs, which has been a problem for him.
Bro, do you know what? So, obviously, the other weekend they played West Ham. They didn't have a shot against us in the second half. And this is coming from, this is a team that has arguably the best striker in the world. And then also a very high-level player in Son. They look terrible. Like, they played, we'll get onto it, obviously, with Man United on the weekend. They got battered by Man United 3-0. They were never anywhere near it. They've looked so lacklustre. And I don't understand how they can look so bad.
Yeah, that was the thing for me. Obviously, I'll be the first person to come on here, slander Ollie, call him a cancer in my club, and I'll still very much stand by that. But watching Spurs at the weekend, there was no point where it looked like Harry Kane was going to do something. There wasn't points where it looked like Sonny was going to do anything in it. I've always been a big supporter of Son, and I say that when Harry Kane kind of shies out of games, he's sort of the guy that always would step up for them. But no one's stepping up in that team. It was just so lackluster. Like, there was no communication with the defence. When they were putting their hands up for offsides, like, there was no line in their defence. It looked like it was just zigzag. That was all it was. There were players out of position, wayward passes and dropping their head. It was almost like with no disrespect, actually, yeah, with disrespect to Spurs, it was almost like Sunday League level where you make that wayward pass and your head drops. Like, to be playing at the level they're playing at and to be showing a performance like that, they should be ashamed of themselves because they are the reason that Nuno doesn't have a job anymore.
And like you said, it was like Sunday League level. If you look at all the goals, the first goal, Cristiano Ronaldo goal, will come on to the amazing goals this weekend. But that was incredible in terms of ball over the top from Bruno Fernandes. And Ronaldo hits it on the full volley, and it's one of the goals of the season so far. But all the goals were the same. It was the ball over the top. The man's on the last Spurs man. And he just breaks the line pretty easy. And like you say, Sunday League, because remember Sunday League when you had someone's dad being the liner and he'd give you the favourable decisions. So that's what Spurs were looking for the whole time, and they weren't getting those decisions because the line weren't pushing up together. And you saw Rashford's goal, you saw Cavani's goal. They were similar in terms of the ball just played through, Mount through one-on-one with the keeper and was going to sort it away. So Spurs looked poor, really, really poor. I think it's the man of the defeats as to why Nuno's lost his job. And I think it stems back from the fact that he wasn't their first choice manager. They went through talking to Fonseca, talking to Graham Potter, talking to Antonio Conte. And I think Nuno was probably their fourth or fifth choice. And when that's the case, it already embeds in the players' heads that this is not the guy. So when your backs are to the wall, it's not like these players are going to fight for the manager. You see the way Harry Kane's playing, he's not playing to his full capacity. You see the way Son's playing as well, which you touched on. And I feel like at the moment, Spurs are lost. They haven't got that leadership, and maybe with the new appointment of this manager, we might see a different type of Spurs in terms of the energy from the players. But at the moment, they're a team that are very much at sea.
Well, it was strange because they started the season with 3 straight wins, didn't they? They started really strong, and that was coincidentally without Harry Kane in the side. And I don't think Nuno's been helped by the Harry Kane situation. He's kind of inherited just a shitstorm of a situation.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel sorry for him because, I really liked it when Wolves come up to the Premier League a few years ago and they were really, punching above their weight with some really quality players. And Nuno was a large part of that, getting them out of the Championship. And he is a good manager, but I don't feel like he's necessarily had. I feel like he's had Tottenham, but he's had Tottenham with his hands behind his back at times. How do you cope? Dealing with the club's best player wanting to leave, and there's almost like there's a public spat between the player and the chairman. The chairman keeps him. You've got to use him as a manager, but then the player's not clearly at the races. So I don't know how you really how he was expected to succeed in such a short amount of time. Yeah. It's strange because again, when Harry Kane wasn't in the side, they started so strong, and then ever since then, especially in the last month or so, they've really capitulated. They lost to Vitesse in the the Europa B-Tech. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, what was it called? The Conference League. Yeah. So like they lost to them. Like they were very poor against us, and typically between West Ham and Spurs, it's very like a spicy affair. But they were awful. It was such a quiet game. No shots in the second half says it all. And yeah, like you said on the weekend against Man United, they got taught a lesson. And this is coming from a Man United side that have just come off a ridiculously heavy loss. So they weren't exactly full of confidence. So it's a weird one with Spurs, and I don't know where they go from here. I don't think that, sure, they could bring in a Conte, they could bring in a Fonseca, but I still feel like they are going to be inheriting a Harry Kane situation where he doesn't want to be there ultimately, and how that situation is navigated going forward is going to be difficult. It's just one of those ones to deal with. But I enjoy seeing Tottenham.
I thought you both would, man. Like, I know what you mean on that Spurs performance. It was a bit of a weird one. It was. I didn't look at that Spurs at any point and see anything that I saw in that Wolves team. And I feel like, as much as it's very clear to say, like, form is temporary and class is permanent. And I feel like you can see it in the Wolves team now. And some of those like players like Matt Doherty, he doesn't look like a Premier League level of player. Yeah, he hasn't looked good at Spurs. And I feel like even in that Wolves team, like, they are an okay team. Are you seeing them play at the level when they come up to the Premier League? No. And I feel like as much as you can't kind of point the blame to Nuno, you have to kind of point at him and say he did a good job with that Wolves team, because I watch them some weeks, they look like they could still be in the Championship, and then I watch them some weeks and they look like they could be pushing for top 6. So it's like very up and down with them, but to get the level of performances that he did out of that Wolves team shows that he does have it as a manager. But like you said, he wasn't the guy, he wasn't their first, second, third choice. And you've seen it already. People speaking about the team Conte is going to have. Like a week ago, this guy was assuring for the Man United job, and now Ollie's kept his job. Nuno's been sacked, and now we're in a position where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably going to keep his job till the end of the season, because if they get Conte, there's no other managers out there. But I feel like, was it a bit early? I don't know, but I feel like we're looking at the situation and saying Spurs never wanted him, and there is a huge problem. Like I described Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a cancer. I feel like there is a far bigger problem at Spurs. It's you've got the players almost against the club, the hierarchy. I don't think the owner knows what manager he needs to bring in, and I think that's the worst part about it. Is if you turn around to Daniel Levy and said, "What manager do you want to bring in to play the best possible football for Tottenham Hotspur?" He doesn't even know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and they brought indications are that Antonio Conte is going to be confirmed as Spurs manager, if not today, then tomorrow, or later on this week. And if you look at Conte historically, I know that he came to Chelsea off the back of Chelsea finishing 10th in the league, so it's a very different situation. And he did have to inherit a squad. He didn't really get to bring in his own type of players. He did bring in N'Golo Kante that summer, but that wasn't a Conte signing. That was a signing of the club we saw that he was available in the market. And he did a fantastic job in terms of a team that had Marcus Alonso and Victor Moses starting at wing back and won the league of that team. Spurs, as they're currently constructed, are very, very different. And Conte doesn't normally take over teams halfway through a season. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets the Spurs players to buy into his philosophy. He comes in, he changes it to 3 at the back, which is something that I'm surprised that Nuno didn't do a little bit more, because that's what he implemented at Wolves. But what Conte does bring is a level of clout that Nuno didn't have. He's won leagues in England, he's won it in Italy as well. He's managed on the international stage. So he's got that level of clout, and that players can buy in. Harry Kane knows that this is a world-class manager. And Harry Kane also knows that his time might be limited at Spurs, but him not performing this season doesn't do anything to help Spurs sell him on next summer. It just makes their job more difficult, because they're still going to want to ascertain a certain type of fee for him. And the performances don't warrant that. So Man City are going to be less inclined to pay 150 million next summer. So I think bringing in Conte will have an effect on the team. What that effect is, it depends on what your expectations are for Spurs. If you, as a Spurs fan, thought you were going to finish in the top 4 this season with kind of players that you brought in the summer, I feel like you're living in a raw form of delusion, because that's just not how it is. Your team's not that good. If you're a Spurs fan that expected top 6 football, they'll definitely think Conte can bring that to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So the appointment's a good one, because Conte is a world-class manager that almost every team in the world would like to be in charge of their club. But the timing is just a bit odd, and the fact that he rejected them in the summer but is taking the job now just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I agree. And just to really round off on Tottenham, I mean, we say about, Spurs fans having ambitions to finish in the top 4. I mean, they are sitting 8th in the table right now. They're above Leicester, they're above Everton. They're five points off the top 4, so they're there or thereabouts. Last weekend, they were 3 points off it. Obviously, another loss has put them slightly behind the pack, but they're not a million miles away. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not just the fact that they've been losing games, it's the manner of how they've lost and how they've performed on the pitch, and a change needed to happen, because you look at how vitriolic the crowd was yesterday, saying you don't know what you're doing. Sorry, not yesterday, it was the other day on the weekend, but the crowd chanting you don't know what you're doing. It was just a toxic environment. So yeah, it's the end of Nuno in the Premier League for now, but I'm sure we'll see him pop up somewhere else in the Prem, and hopefully we do, because he's a good manager at heart. I think it's just been a bit of a bad situation at Tottenham.